Well, this was just a crazy time for professional wrestling. I mean, you had all that madness with JBL and the Blue Meanie. If you don't know that story, the first time you read it, you will want to cry. You had everything between Matt Hardy and Edge that made me go, oh my gosh, it's like a real life soap opera. And Juventud Guerrera just lost his last name in WWE. So even all the way back here, we were still doing it. There was also talk that Sabu was going to sign with the company, and if you were a watcher of ECW in the late 90s, surely you'd have been like, how? How the hell have we got here? And Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, which happened on Vengeance 2005, was meant to be a street fight. And do you know why it wasn't? Because both these guys went to Vince McMahon and they were like, Vinny, what you doing? This is a terrible idea. Forget all of that though, because the best thing about this period was that Kane released an autobiography. I don't mean Glenn Jacobs, I mean Kane, the big red machine Undertaker's brother. Which means when you read it, it's all like, oh my gosh, I got burned as a fire as a kid, oh my gosh, I killed Katie Vick. And the poor person writing this had to try and make sense of it, even though on television it was gibberish. So seriously, if you've never picked this up and glanced at it, I beg you to do so, you're gonna laugh. Otherwise, Vengeance 2005 is a really good show, and if you want to start going, oh, it's one of the best pay-per-views ever, I would find it hard to argue, apart from this one segment that was so bad, I thought about ripping my eyes out. But hello, my name is Simon Miller. Welcome to Retro Ups and Downs, where yes, indeedy, we are going to look at WWE Vengeance 2005 that happened in Las Vegas in front of 10,000 people and around about 400,000 people on pay-per-view. But was it any good or did it absolutely suck? Let's find out by upping those retro downs. I lost it at the start of Vengeance 2005 because of course we get our opening promo video and it's all like, oh, we're going to have Christian versus Chris Jericho versus John Cena for the WWE title. And this text, look at it, comes up on screen where it says, whose time is now? But it doesn't say whose time is now. It says, who is time is now? Who put that rogue apostrophe there? Because I'm coming after you. I mean, whoever did do this, 17 years later, you ruined my day, ruined it. Stop butchering the English language. Unless, of course, you were saying, oh, who is time is now? Like there was some wrestler called Time is Now. But I did some research, there wasn't. And this riled me up so much, it is getting it down. Learn how to use an apostrophe. Seriously, I couldn't believe it. To the point, I text my girlfriend. I was like, wait, have I gone crazy here? Or is that just an abomination? And she said, surely WWE wouldn't do that. I was like, man, trust me, the things they've done, that ain't none. This was the video that kept on giving though, because you then move on to Triple H versus Batista that was going to be in Hell in a Cell. And Batista goes, a lot of people have asked me, do I know what I'm in for? Well, the answer is, I don't. I was like, Dave, just go look it up on the internet. Type in Hell in a Cell. Honestly, I could not help my laughter. That was a really stupid thing to say. Thankfully, Carlito, who was the brand new Intercontinental Champion, then comes out for our first match. And he's taken on Shelton Benjamin, the person he beat for this title. So it was very handy there was a pay-per-view at the weekend. The real reason this works though is that the crowd is into everything. Seriously, Carlito and Shelton could have sat down and started playing chess. And Shelton could have gone, I'm going to move my rook to b4, whatever the hell it is. And they would have gone, oh my gosh, rook to b4. And as soon as you get that kind of energy, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it comes out of the TV screen, it hits you on the head, and you just want to be involved. It does start a bit weird because Carlito had basically screwed over Shelton Benjamin, and yet they start with a lockup. I will never understand that. Like if somebody has wronged you, and then you're in a ring, and a referee goes, oh, you can fight him if you want, you're going to take your fist, and you're going to punch them straight in the face. Especially when it comes to Carlito, because my word, nobody has a better smug expression than him. You just look at him, you're like, man, he having the time of his life. Even though he does nothing to elicit them, halfway through the fans just go, I think we should boo Shelton Benjamin now. So of course they do, although he has a great showing here, and the only reason he loses is because he gets hit with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, because of course he does. We should have been making a bigger song and dance about this back in 2005, and maybe in 2022, it wouldn't be their #1 finish. You also get some shenanigans, because before that, Carlito had revealed and exposed the turnbuckle, and then Benjamin and Stinger splashed straight into the metal. But look, if our opening match is meant to get you all ready for the show, it is getting it up. Christina versus Victoria next, and you're already thinking to yourself, well, I bet that wasn't very good. And no, it's not great, but it also kind of is. And that made no sense. But again, if WWE could write that time is now bullshit, I could do whatever I want. Here's the thing though, they just focus on what they're good at. They only get around about 5 minutes, and they clearly said to each other backstage, let's just do the simple stuff as well as we can possibly do. And before we know it, we can get to the ending, 1, 2, 3, and everybody will be happy. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, there were some issues here in the sense that apparently Victoria was properly sick before this, so maybe she shouldn't be wrestling. And the story was that Christy had hit her head so much, she may be suffering from concussion problems. And imagine anyone tried to rope that into a storyline now, be like, nah, bro, we don't do it. It does get really embarrassing when the crowd start chanting for puppies, as does Jerry Lawler. And if you were in this audience, what were you hoping for here? You just wanted someone to go, way, and whip their top off. Look, it's wrestling. It's professional wrestling. If you're into all that schmaz, there is plenty of other content that will satisfy you. The fans once more cannot figure out who they're meant to boo and who they're meant to cheer, so they just keep changing their minds. And yes, it ends with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. Although at least this time, Victoria holds the rope because she's a bad guy and we're meant to think she's a piece of shit. But honestly, there is nothing wrong with this at all. I mean, we could be a pedant and find some stuff, but it's probably another reason why this pay-per-view overall is very well regarded. We then have an interview with John Cena, and clearly nobody had told him, look, John, when you're talking about your opponents, make sure you put them over. Otherwise, if you are going to beat them, you've beaten nobody. Because he just craps all over Chris Jericho. He craps all over Christian to once again, I was just chuckling away. It is such a burial. John Cena also clearly wants to be The Rock here because he's doing this bit with Todd Gresham. That was a little bit awkward. But yeah, if you've never seen this, you should check it out because John just annihilates them and basically goes, I'd be better off fighting a baby. And WWE would have booked that in 2005. They would have done John Cena versus Baby. John Cena would have won. Which then leads us to Edge versus Kane, which is kind of a fascinating match because of the places both characters was in. Edge was about to blast through the glass ceiling and become a main eventer, whereas Kane was like in the second or third iteration of his persona. So when you put them together, it kind of felt like a bit of a mismatch. Especially when you get to the story. Because this was when Kane was married to Lita, and then Lita had screwed Kane and gone with Edge, and Gene Snitsky was there being like, man, I really love feet and kicking babies. I almost facepalmed before I had said the babies bit, which actually ties into what we just said about John Cena. That's the kid it could have worked. You also had everything like we've already mentioned with Matt Hardy, where the fans were well aware what was going on, because as soon as this starts, everyone's going, we want Matt. We want Matt. Before long, the commentators were going to start talking about this, proving he had re-signed a deal. But can you imagine being Mr. Hardy back in 2005? Your girlfriend has cheated on you with your best friend, and then you lose your job. I mean, of course he went crazy on the internet. Who wouldn't have done? It also does mean we get some awful chants shouted in the direction of Lita, and she has gone on record in subsequent interviews going, yeah, I didn't really like that, but you can't deny the chemistry between Edge and Lita. It really is quite good. It must have tied into how The Office saw this pair as well, because for most of this match, Edge is just whipping Kane's ass. And imagine you had gone back to 1998 and found a WWF fan and gone, you see that guy from The Brood? In a few years, he is going to absolutely destroy The Undertaker's undead brother. They would have laughed at you and spat in your face, because they're not good people. And of course, there is plenty of nonsense during this because Gene Snitsky does run out. And it's unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable because every time he interferes, the referee just so handily happens to be attending to Lita, who also kept trying to get involved. Like, it's just so unbelievable. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is. You're watching it going, referee, turn around, you absolute son of a gun, and your neighbors come round and they tell you off, and then you show them all this, and they go, oh no, you should be yelling, because I'm going to start yelling too. Finally, Kane gets rid of all of this so he can get his hands on Lita. What he does is he does get his big paw and he puts it around her neck. Now you'll be going, well, Simon, he was going to chokeslam her, but he doesn't. He only stops when Edge finally attacks him, or Gene Snitsky, whoever the hell it was. And before that, he was just going, oh. So he was trying to kill Lita. That's what he was doing. And you shouldn't be laughing at it, because it's not very funny. Eventually, Gene does get taken out when Edge tries to hit Kane with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and he misses. That's when Kane finally grabs Edge and gives him the chokeslam, and he gets the 1, 2, 3, and that briefcase is the smart thing to remember here. That's why WWE beat the rated R superstar, because they were like, well, he's going to cash that in for a world title eventually. We can protect him then. It's a shame Matt Hardy doesn't turn up here because the fans were desperate to see it. And as crazy as this all is, it is never dull, it is never boring, and it is getting it up. I then think somebody had found Shawn Michaels and put a gun to his head and gone, look, you're about to cut a promo, and unless you find a way to work the name of the show in, I'm gonna pull the trigger. Because the weird things that he went on to say. Because he does mention the fact he's facing Kurt Angle for the second time, that he lost when they did face off at WrestleMania, so now he really, really wants to win, and I was like, okay, yeah, that all makes sense. Instantly though, he keeps going, well, I'm not 100% sure whether I will win or lose, because you know, Kurt Angle's pretty good, but what I do know is that vengeance will be mine. I was like, Sean, I got a whole little bit. It's called Nobody Talks Like That. And if you actually said that to somebody else in the real world, they'd be like, Sean, please leave me alone. We're no longer friends. This, of course, does mean it's time for Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle round 2. And honestly, this is superb. Straight away, people are like, well, was this one better? Or was the WrestleMania one better? But who cares? Take them both, push them together like you're eating ice cream and cake, and just enjoy the goodness that rolls all over your body. These two are absolutely redonkulous. Let's start with some chain wrestling to remind you, yeah, we can both do this. But as soon as they hear the crowd getting a little bit quiet, they hit the go button, and then it is honestly just joy for around about 25 minutes. Because Shawn goes for a sunset flip off the ropes, but Kurt Angle reverses that into the ankle lock, but Heartbreak Kid remembers that from WrestleMania, so he gets out of it. So Angle goes, well, I remember what I did at the show of shows. I'm gonna angle slam you into the ring post, but once again, Shawn is like, haha, no, you're not. When Kurt finally grabs him and German suplexes him onto the announce table. But it doesn't break, so Michael just goes, pow, and he bounces off it right onto the floor. All of that also happens in around about 30 seconds. It is just wild. If that wasn't brutal enough for you, Angle then buckle bombs Shawn Michaels. And in 2005, that was like, what on earth was that move? And I tell you the real secret sauce between those two. Kurt Angle is allowed to act like an insane person throughout all of this. Shawn Michaels sells it like, oh my gosh, Kurt Angle is insane. And that relationship, well, it just works. This is true again when Kurt Angle goes for the angle slam, but Shawn Michaels reverses it into an arm drag. And then when they're back on their feet, they just punch each other right in the face. They must have had a chat beforehand, like, we've got to make this look as real as possible. What's a good way to do that? Well, I'll clench my hand and I'll bonk you in the nose. You do get a ref bump because WWE can't help themselves, but it does allow both of them to go nuts. So you get super kicks, you get angle slams, you get ankle locks, and you genuinely do not know what direction this is going to go in. And that's all you need when it comes to any wrestling match. If you're second guessing what you're actually seeing, it means you're plugged in. The ending as well is absolutely sublime, although admittedly other people have done it better. But Kurt Angle finally decides, I can't beat this guy. I can't finish him off. So what I will do is I'll climb to the top rope and I'll hit him with that traditional classic flying nothing. That's right, he just jumps in the air. That allows Shawn Michaels to hit him with sweet chin music as he is coming down. He pins him, 1, 2, 3, and I get it, I understand. No, it's not as good as the Shelton Benjamin one, but it's still pretty damn good. You really won't find a better contest than this in 2005, although of course there are other matches that are comparable, but it doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up. It's so real received that we start teasing it instantly because HBK is limping to the back and Kurt Angle's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. As Jim Ross shouts, oh gosh, that's the best thing I've ever seen. You know what? He's not after all. We then go to the back where World Heavyweight Champion Batista is being interviewed by the coach. And while this was a masterclass in ensuring that Dave Batista became a megastar, do not think it was perfect, because as we're reminded here, oh yeah, Dave, do you remember at that last event where the only reason you held onto your title was because of crappy officiating? Why don't we talk about that and remind all the fans? So I don't want to crap over what Triple H did here because he did a fantastic job, but there was still the odd promo where he was like, oh, I should have won her. And Batista is so mad about this because he goes, shut up you, shut up everybody, listen to this. Triple H is going to have to kill me if he wants to take my championship. That's so funny. It's meant to get you pumped up and it's all intense, but it's a dumb thing to say. Dave, listen to me. If it comes to your life or a championship belt, give up the belt. Triple H must have been just off camera watching all of this because he just walks into frame, and you do get a bit of a fracas here, which is kind of interesting for a pay-per-view. Usually nobody touches. I liked it. It is also so much better than what comes next. To the point, I'm not even going to recount it to you in the usual ups and downs way. What I'm going to do is I shall read it to you as if it was a story, because that's what WWE tells us they do. They tell stories. Okay, well, if one day you picked up a book and you wanted this, here's how it would read. Hello and welcome to Storytime with me, Simon Miller. There once was a girl called Lillian Garcia, and she was in love with a man mountain known as Viscera. And after weeks of courting each other and having a relationship, Lillian Garcia came to the ring at Vengeance 2005 and asked her beau to accompany her. After singing a horrendous song that made me want to cry because it was so damn cheesy and not in keeping with the event at all, she asked Big Vis to stand up. Lillian got down on one knee and said, "I love you. You are my everything. Will you marry me?" Just as it looked like Viscera was going to shed a tear of his own, these two were interrupted by the Godfather, a pimp who was accompanied by some prostitutes. He got in the ring and he told Viscera, "Vis, as soon as my girls knew that you were here in Vegas, they wanted to party with you. So now that it looks like you're about to be wed, they are utterly distraught. How about you abandon your girlfriend and come have some sex with these guys instead?" After pondering and thinking about it, Viscera decided, hey, this is the way to go. Dumped Lillian Garcia right in the ring, leaving her to cry and be a very, very sad panda. Yep, that's right. All of that is 100% true. And I had deleted this from my brain and I watched the entire thing, which goes on for about 15 minutes, like this. I'm never, ever, ever going to get over it, to the point it doesn't just get the down, it gets the brown down. When does that ever happen? We went from golden up to flipping brown down. Thankfully, WWE did have a triple threat match for the WWE title waiting in the wings, and it is John Cena versus Christian versus Chris Jericho versus Time Is Now, I suppose. And there was no way this is going to be bad. These three are too good. It's also very timely because John Cena is just so over here. He gets a massive cheer during his entrance, during the match. I mean, at one point, Vegas once again goes, let's try booing him and see if it happens. But when you compare it to what was going to happen, if you would have got in a time machine and told somebody the changes that were about to go down, they wouldn't have believed you. They actually wouldn't have. You do see all three chatting beforehand, and that was really weird, because if you look closely, it kind of looks like Cena's going, okay, well, we're gonna do spot 1, then we'll move to spot 54, then we'll do the 5 moves of doom, FU, 1, 2, 3, and we're done. But when he has stopped speaking, Christian and Chris Jericho just jump him, because of course they're the bad guys, and they start beating him up. But at least WWE did do this. Sometimes they do 3 ways, and it's 2 good guys beating on the bad guy, and you're like, well, that doesn't work, because now I feel sorry for him. Poor Christian gets hurled over the top and takes this horrible landing early on, but that's when Chris Jericho can take over. And look, John Cena is very good during this, but you can just tell that Jericho is being the ring general here. He grabs the champion by the horns and he drags him through it. He smashes Cena up for a while on the outside, but then gets DDT'd himself, so he's out the game. But really, luckily, Christian has then recovered. It's almost like we planned this out. He too does some smashing because John Cena goes into the steel steps, and this is when Chris Jericho is back to his feet. So once again, it was like, oh no, how is John going to overcome these insurmountable odds? And yes, WWE would keep doing this against Cena, and Cena would always overcome them. That was going to become the problem. I do remember at the time some people were saying, well, it wasn't that good, but I totally disagree, especially when they do this Tower of Doom-esque spot. And of course, before long, John Cena kicks out of the Unprettier. Because despite Christian being a really good professional wrestler, WWE never cared about him properly at all. Tyson Tonko also get involved here because in 2005 he was Christian's mate, and I'll just tell you this, it's okay how much interference does go down, but is it too much? Yes. That is just designed to get another near fall on Cena though, as he gets his shoulder up at 2. This is when Christian gets chucked out the ring again and takes another horrible fall when Chris Jericho gets John Cena in the walls of Jericho. You're like, oh my gosh, he's going to do it. But of course he doesn't. Instead, Christian runs back in there. He gets put into the FU position. There's this cool bit where Cena kind of spins him to take out Jericho. He gets hit, 1, 2, 3, and still your WWE champion and your WWE champion for the next 15 years, Jonathan Cena. This does feel nice though, because the fans really enjoy it and you get that energy once again. Give it a year. It also means our main event was for the World Heavyweight Championship, which in 2005 WWE had decided was the more important of the 2 belts, mostly because of Triple H, but take that, throw it out the window, because all of this is absolutely tremendous. The whole program ever since the Royal Rumble has been a masterclass in how to make a star, and of course this was going down in the Hell in a Cell, and it is pretty damn brutal. Now you are going to have flashbacks when you are watching it, because Triple H gets a chain out of a toolbox, but move that to one side, and answer me this instead. Who the flub puts a chain in a toolbox? It just means this starts hot, especially when a barbed wire steel chair is introduced into the mix. Now, being the nerd I am, I was like, well, clearly that's not real barbed wire because I don't see Mick Foley around here. But I think it was because Batista gets thrown into this and the camera zooms into his back and you see it bleeding and it does not look good. Triple H is bleeding by this point and blood is just splattering all over the place, which is quite the visual. And at one point, Triple H does take a powerbomb onto this steel chair. And do you know what he makes Batista look like? You have to forgive me here, but it's true. An animal. I mean, he does get his revenge almost instantly when he slams Batista with a DDT and he's now bleeding too. And go and watch this carefully. I think some of the red stuff goes into the crowd. I don't think that's going to be on your ticket. Before long, the Kane goes and finds his trusty sledgehammer, and I have such a problem with this being a weapon. One, it just means you're trying to murder someone. You can't hit somebody with a sledgehammer and expect they're going to survive. But also, two, he does that thing where he grabs the end of it and he just hits Batista in the head. You don't take a wall down like that with a sledgehammer. That's the whole point. You would get it and go crack. It really was stupid. It does allow Batista to kick out of two when you get a proper ooh from the fans, and this is when they really start using the cage as the devil's favorite structure. And at one point, Triple H's head also goes into the sledgehammer, so he probably shouldn't have introduced it. The real shocker and the best reaction of the entire night is when Triple H finally hits Batista with the pedigree, because this move had been so protected, even every single person in the crowd was like, well, that's it, Dave's gonna lose his championship. But when he does kick out, my word, it is an absolutely phenomenal noise and kind of justifies people not kicking out of finishes, because here it made all the difference. JR is also losing it by this point, going, no, stop it, which makes you buy in even more. And before long, Batista grabs Triple H, he gives him a spine buster on the steel steps, and then he picks him up for the Batista bomb. But even then you have last second drama, because as Tripp does go up, he grabs the sledgehammer and you're like, no, don't hit Dave in the head. But thankfully, Batista is ahead of the game, quite literally and figuratively. He slams him down, he pins him, and that is that. He is officially your world heavyweight champion, and that man is great. They then both lay there in their own blood to sell everything, as nobody comes out to offer them medical attention. I mean, why would a doctor do this? Like, well, no, I'm off the clock now. Sucks to be those guys. But it's a great main event. It is a great making of Batista, and it is obviously getting it up. Which brings us to Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer ratings, and as always, let me know your star ratings in the comments below, because it's good to get second opinions. He gave our opener between Shelton Benjamin and Carlito 2.5 stars. Victoria versus Christie got 1.5 stars. Kane versus Edge got 2 3/4 stars. Michaels versus Angle got 4.5 stars. Cena versus Jericho versus Christian got 3 3/4 stars, and our main event also got a whopping 4.5 stars. So that's the end of Vengeance 2005, and seriously, it gets an up. This is a really good, underrated pay-per-view that you should retroactively go and watch. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about Vengeance 2005. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head on over to whatculture.com where you can read yourself some articles. Make sure you watch other retro ups and downs. Maybe your favorite show or worst show is in the mix. And come say hello on social media. You can even suggest other ideas for retro ups and downs. My name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always. See you soon.